All right, let me go toss the cat out and close the door.
Of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olson.
Let the rumors spread. Don't you try to catch my blind.
And Mr. Greg Bakken will be sitting in the co-host seat with me, and you can also find us at Minnesota Paracon this October. I do believe it's 12th, 13th, and 14th. Don't miss us there doing live remote. Come hobnob with us, and hopefully, fingers crossed, Eric will be there. Yeah,
I will do my darndest.
It will be a wonderful
I will
thing.
either flap my arms or drive my car.
One of those two, or you can fly in. Yeah, I mean, there's that, too. I can always pick you up at airport, man. So, I mean, there's that. But that being said, we got to get to what people came for, and that's some true crime. And, of course, this true crime, like always, is brought to you by thecriminalcode.com, your one-stop shop, whether you're into serial killers, whether you're into true crime itself, whether or not you want to read the doctor's notes, which is super rare. You don't get that everywhere. That is Miss Clarissa Cole's own website over there. And, boy, does she do a great job each and every week adding new content. Again, this is brought to you by The Criminal Code.
Thank you. Speaking of, I did do that profile on Andrew Cunanan, so that is up. I did that this last week as
very
was
cool.
requested. Yes.
Very cool. I'll have to go over there and read that. I have not had a chance. With the show expansion, planning that, man, it has just been fever pitch around here, trying to get everything in a row for that. But, man, this is true crime, and you got a ton of headlines. I'm looking at them, and they're all super cool.
I would like to start with Walmart because I can.
Yes, please do that. Walmart is back in the news.
What is a Wednesday without Walmart?
That's right. Wednesday without Walmart is not a great place. That's a woeful day.
Walmart in Florida.
Oh, my God. You're covering both bases right there with one story.
It's like a permanent location.
No, this one is actually nearest, I think, to you, Eric, Missouri. Is that nearest to you, or is it nearer to you, Joel?
It might even be in the middle.
Is it right in the middle?
It might be in the middle of us, Eric and I.
It would make a triangle. I'm guessing, it's probably really pretty close.
The triangle of death.
Well, there's that, too.
Obviously.
Well, I don't know if it's the triangle of death, but apparently in Festus, for goodness sake, Festus, Missouri.
Festus.
Razor blades have been discovered hidden in the handles of Walmart shopping carts.
Wow.
Put there by Walmart itself?
Well, no.
To keep shoppers alert?
It's a test.
They kept dropping off. They were falling asleep. What can we do? What if we put razor blades in the handle? That'll keep them awake.
We'll just kill them off. We'll kill off the dumb.
Well, apparently a woman named as Michelle Patterson felt a prick on her finger when she used a sanitary wipe to clean the handle of her cart and it was a razor blade, and they found several more carts in this location with razor blades inserted in the handle.
They're looking to kill people off. That's what they're doing.
Why? Why would someone do
that?
It's just
Walmart now. I shop there, you shop there, everyone shops there, but here's the deal. We cannot buy Chinese goods at an affordable price if you kill us before we go into the store.
Or just cause massive bleeding, because nobody wants to continue at that point.
We just can't do it. I mean, we'd like to, but if you kill us before we have a chance to shop.
Or cut off our fingers.
Yeah. How are we supposed to reach?
You can't reach to the shelf.
Exactly. How are you supposed to get your money if you have no fingers?
Well, and plus, like that, the thing that really bothers me is that the handles of that's where people put their kids. You know, you set your kid.
It depends on how much you love your kids, I guess. Yeah, if you don't love them a whole lot, here, sit on the razor blades. They'll be good for you.
It's just, hard for me to fathom the razor blades and the cart handles. But
dude,
the police didn't think it was meant to harm people.
But they think it was just a little wake-up call.
They were saying that they thought that they were placed there by a shoplifter who was using them to remove tags or open packages. But why would you put them in the handle of the cart?
Well, I suppose so. It's not conspicuous while you're shoplifting.
And why would you do multiple?
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Why multiple carts? Unless there's a whole conspiracy of shoplifters coming in.
Going, how else do they mark the carts, though? You just want to get
gang. Yeah, it's a gang of them just coming into Walmart saying, we want our Chinese goods.
For free.
For free. For free. We don't want to pay. Are you nuts? No, I've hung around a Walmart parking lot after dark. Every single one of them I've seen after dark, it's a sketchy place.
It is.
Does this shock me? Oh, absolutely not.
I guess.
So the two options are either it is some sort of device, a contraption to aid shoplifting, or it's some sort of booby trap along the lines of putting, Drano in the preparation age. I don't know, like has been done before.
Yeah,
we don't think it's Walmart themselves doing this, do we?
No, I would imagine. What do you think, Clarissa? Do you think it's Walmart themselves? One of the employees disgruntled? I'll show you.
Yeah, but how would you not get yourself? You never want to be on cart duty again.
If you're the one that puts the razor blades in maybe it was actually a revenge plot against one of the cart grabbers.
Maybe that guy that I asked out and didn't want to go out with me. That cart corral person.
Or I was passed over to be the cart corral man, and now I'm really, really mad, and now I'm stuck here in apparel.
I guess anything is possible.
I'm stuck monitoring the changing room.
You wouldn't believe the used underwear I find.
Yeah, anything's possible. It's just strange to me that the police sort of asserted, it must be for shoplifting. And I'm thinking, I would think they'd keep the razor blades on them if it was for shoplifting. You
would think that would be the case. You would think that would be the smart case. But
or they would have removed it as they were egressing.
Exactly.
So as to not leave evidence, which could have DNA on.
Right there. I'm not sure now if they would go so far to run DNA analysis on a shoplifting case.
No, not on shoplifting. Plus, I got to say, have you seen packaging lately? If somebody is able to have a razor blade, and it takes me a razor blade, a hacksaw, and a crowbar to get certain things.
Let me tell you,
man. Packaging.
Let me tell you.
I could never do it in a store.
It can no longer be called plastic.
No.
It has evolved into something else.
Now infused to kryptonite.
I agree. I have to run over some packages with my car to get them open.
Harder to exhume than H.H. Holmes under concrete.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to the top of next hour, but yeah, definitely. But yes, and what I was going to say is it takes Superman these days to open a package anymore. Even as something simple as, a pair of, for instance, razors for shaving. My God, the packaging is horrible to open. You're like, what What are you people doing here? Why is this package 25,000 layers thick?
Why do they need all that? I mean, I guess I know why they need it, but I went to get some Excedrin migraine the other day. I get migraines occasionally. Trying to get that open while you have any sort of pain going on. Come on.
And torture. It is torture. You want to talk about torture? Buy toys once.
Ooh,
take a crack at that packaging.
And then get it open and realize you needed batteries anyway.
Yeah. What do you mean they're not included? What the hell?
They're never included.
Never. Even if the package says included, I still buy batteries.
I like, my favorite are when you get anything that comes with a remote. Typically, they do provide a battery, but it's a battery that was made by handless dwarves in the Philippines. I mean,
like 20 years ago?
Are you saying
there's... What brand is that? You know, like, what? I've never heard of that. And you pop it in, it lasts for 5 minutes. Yeah. Yep, there's your free battery.
Yeah, it's a demo battery. That's all you get. Demonstration battery. That's it. And it's made with the cheapest materials known to the free world.
And no offense to either Filipinos or dwarves or people with no hands.
True.
Or handless dwarves, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have tons of those listeners, the handless dwarves variety.
Summon that from the air. Maybe there are none of those. Let us hope.
You just never know. All right, we've beaten Walmart to death.
We have. It's time to go to Florida.
Let's go to Florida now. Let's go check out Florida.
This story, and I apologize to the Florida police, this story delights me. Just does. So in Sumter County, Florida, it is a retirement community, and there are a lot of those in Florida. But it's like an upscale. It's called the Villages.
Yeah.
It's an upscale retirement community, and they sorry, I'm laughing while reading it. They had a SWAT raid.
What?
In this retirement community, which had to have been hilarious. I'm sorry, it just had to have been.
I'm picturing that at my mother's place.
Yeah, I'm picturing that right now. Grandma sitting there in a rascal scooter, and the SWAT people bulldozing through the door. Don't move!
Yeah,
this is a raid.
The whole vehicle, the whole
propelling
thing.
Through the window, like a Christmas vacation.
Yeah, and then the old man looks at his old wife, goes, "What? I only like soup."
So the SWAT team goes in, and honestly, props to them. I do love cops. I'm not saying. And what they found now was a cache of illegal drugs and a golf cart chop shop.
Golf cart chop.
Was one fueling the other?
Yeah, exactly.
Good question.
How does this racketeering scheme of theirs work?
I'm not sure, but it was reported, right? This house was reported as a, quote, problem location.
Miscreants.
It's a retirement community. It's a retirement community.
Wow.
Yes. So along with drugs, they found an entire attic full of golf cart parts and other stolen items, which led them to believe that the location was used as a golf cart chop shop. And in the Villages, a golf cart is the main mode of transportation for the residents. And there's lots of residents. There's like 100,000 people in this place.
Wow. You know, they do call Florida God's waiting room.
Amazing. 100,000. Think of that. It's a city.
It is. Yeah. It's huge.
The population of Akron, Ohio. My goodness.
But like I was saying, they call Florida God's waiting room. So does that surprise me? That population? Not really. They're all waiting.
These people weren't all that old. They were 53, 45, 38, 43. And the outlier, 63. I think they had to rely on the 63-year-old to live there.
That was their in.
Yeah.
Right there. The 63-year-old was their in. That's how they got into the market. He was the kingpin.
Okay, it's a market. Like, okay, I'm sorry. Explain this to me. Like, how do you run a chop shop for, like, what do you go up to random people and go, is that golf cart working as well as it could be? Do you have a governor on that
That's
thing?
kind of funny because I'm actually a mechanic during the day, and I work on golf carts occasionally.
So, like, do you try to upsell people with, like...
No. They
with
bring
stolen parts?
Well, no.
How'd you like some meth or heroin to go with that?
You need a bump while you wait? Here. No. But no.
How many cylinders has that thing got?
Yeah. Generally speaking, when we do have to work a golf cart, they provide their own parts, generally speaking, because I don't carry them on hand, and they do not want me to upcharge them for getting said parts. But that being said, yeah, we work on them occasionally, and most of them are electric now, golf carts.
Yeah.
They're kind of getting away from the whole gas thing, and it is a pain in the butt to work on them. But I can, and the problem with parts though is they are worth gold for golf carts.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Especially the old gas models, they are worth like their weight in gold. Seriously. You cannot find a lot of the old Subaru Robin parts, because that's what a lot of the engines were, Subaru Robins, and you cannot get those parts hardly anywhere anymore.
Well, my favorite.
You can get them here.
Oh, yeah, now I'm going to have to call this place up. Now, I just found my new distributor.
I love the title of the video that accompanies the story. Deputies raid problem home in the Villages. And it's just armored, like Hummer.
I see that. They got automatic
through.
Rifles with them.
Oh, man. Battering ram. They're ready to go. Take on that problem home in the Villages.
We got this.
What
Don't
were they
worry.
going to do? Fight them to the death for the parts?
Yeah, exactly. A tussle ensued.
Oh, yes. That is funny. Oh, they don't even mention who the actual resident is.
No.
It's Unrath's uncle, who is in poor health and in no position to argue with all this.
Or is he?
They don't even say how old
He's like
he
the
is.
Godfather.
Or, Eric, or is he that poor health? Or is he, maybe he's their Kaiser Sose?
Maybe. You never know.
He's the brains behind the operation.
Yeah, exactly.
Another Professor Moriarty.
Right there, man. Right there. I believe that.
Oh, well, that is a funny one. All right, let's move along.
All right. Well, this is
Nothing to see here. Move along, boys.
This is also Florida. It's a very odd story. It's not, it's technically crime, but I wanted to pass it on because it's so weird. So, a Florida man died of a gunshot wound nearly 60 years after the bullet was fired.
Oh,
That was
okay.
a slow-acting bullet.
that is a murder at leisure.
Time-release bullet?
Yeah.
It's the ME ruled it a homicide.
Wow.
Wait.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
that's okay. Now, the perpetrator, are they even alive? The person that fired the bullet, number one.
Well, okay, so this man, his name is John Henry Barrett. He was shot in 1958, and he said at age 19 he was shot by a friend during a fight because,
That's what friends do.
Yeah.
Well, they did in 1958
Yeah,
anyway.
that's a 1958 thing. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm mad at you. You're my friend.
Yeah.
The friend, who was not identified in the ME's report, served time in prison, I guess, for this. Court and law enforcement officials told the newspaper that they couldn't find any records with information about the suspect or the shooting. So we don't know if there's going to be any sort of arrest. But Barrett himself, the one who died, worked for 3 decades as a pastor and was a former executive director of a housing authority. And he didn't speak often about the shooting, but I guess he used it as a way to inspire other people because he was somewhat disabled by it.
Wow, look at me. I'm so tough. Bullets can't stop
Well,
me.
he said that the injury kept him from working in the fields, which is why he became a pastor.
Ah, interesting.
So it changed the trajectory of his life.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended at all.
And then it killed him.
Wow, that is definitely murder at
That
leisure.
is quite a story, I must say. Very interesting.
I'm going to shoot you now, and 30 years later, you're going to die, okay?
60 years.
60,
Well,
sorry. 60 years later, you're going to die.
It's 59, but who's counting? So, yeah, I mean, that's actually pretty inspirational in a sense, in that
You can shoot somebody and they won't
because
die
of
right
this
away?
damage, because he was partially paralyzed. We didn't say he died of an infection and complications relating to the gunshot.
Yeah, I was going to say, so how did the bullet end up after all these years killing him?
Yeah, sorry about that. It was an infection. It was near his spinal cord, and it did cause an infection that caused him to pass away.
Well, that ain't cool at all. That poor guy.
I know.
He thought all these years he dodged the bullet.
Oh. Love the laugh, Eric. It was like a little laugh.
Oh, of course it was. So, but on the other hand, the bright side of this, and I am committed right these days to looking at the bright side of it. He was relieved from working in the fields, and who knows, that might have killed him a lot earlier.
Well, I got one more horrible pun. It appears his friend was not shooting blanks.
My gosh. Oh, it's bad pun night here.
Yeah. I mean, he made it to 77. Sounds like he was an important figure, probably in many people's lives. As a
one-shot wonder. Sorry. Sorry, I'm done. I'm done now. I'm sorry.
I apologize to the audience for picking that story.
It was a mixed blessing.
Yeah.
As it were.
Well, he didn't have to do hard labor. You're right, Eric.
He chose to make the most of it. He chose to change his life for the better as a result of this, and he lived a good long time, 60 years almost, with that problem. And sure, you'd like for him to live longer, but hey, if he had a full and satisfying life at 77, then who's to say it wasn't in the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
The big panorama.
Let's ponder that for a minute.
All right, we Lutherans. All right. Well, that's a good one. I like that one.
I do too.
Because it's so odd and it's thought-provoking.
I couldn't believe that it actually was. I mean, obviously it should be ruled a homicide. It was just so confounding to think that it took 60 years for that to happen.
I'm amazed they don't address the guy, the shooter, right?
Yeah. I agree.
Say, is he alive or is he not? What are they going to press charges? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
And if he already served some time, let's say for assault with a deadly weapon, like if he already served some time, it should. I mean, the charges are different now. Now it is a homicide, but maybe since it was so long ago, they just dismissed it. I don't know.
Well, technically, would it be double jeopardy? But no, because it's a different crime. You're saying?
I guess that's what I'm wondering about. It couldn't be double jeopardy because it's a different crime.
But look at this though. A guy gets beat up in a bar, right? Let's just use this scenario. 5 years later, he dies because of the traumatic brain injuries that he received at the hands of these people beating him. The people might have already served their time for beating the guy, and they're out, and they're loose, they're on parole or whatever. He dies, they get recharged of murder. You see that all the time. The charges come back as murder now because he died from your actions.
Exactly.
So, but now we're talking 6 decades now, and who's to say that they even have these files laying around the office anymore of this crime?
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at records this old,
and one more thing, Clarissa, when the police go out, they're serving the community, and they have to decide whether it serves the community and the people to prosecute at this advanced age. Yes, I agree. And does it? If this man already served time for some sort of assault charge, and he's very elderly at this point, they have to weigh sort of the good of, is this the furtherance of justice or not? Yeah, because then you'd have a trial, and I mean, is it too taxing to the taxpayer to have to pay for just for someone that's probably going to pass away, generally speaking, in the next couple of years anyway? And the other thing is those records, of course, are written on papyrus, so it's very used hard to read. Back then, I've seen that. I'm going to tell you a little secret. That's the year I was born. Really? Yes, and so all of my original records are written in papyrus, and it's hard to read. Sure, and it's fragile. Well, that, and I thought maybe for dispatching back in those days, they were using smoke signal. Yes, there was that. And, we'd ride into town on our dinosaurs. Yes.
like in all seriousness, though, those records, because I do have to look at records from very far back sometimes.
Yeah.
It's amazing how degraded the records do get, depending on how they're stored, how many times they're shuffled around, how many times they're photocopied.
Sure, and microfiche.
I've seen records from the 70s that are almost indecipherable.
Yeah, well, and microfiche doesn't last forever either. So
exactly,
but we got to run a break, everyone. We do have a new band with us, and this is the Christopher David Hansen Band. Guys from my neck of the woods, and they are now they're performing right now in Nashville, but they're nice enough to allow us to use their music, and we thank them for that. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this, guys.
Water, maybe something that I breathe, something from a bedtime story, something from the sea.
Hey, you listen to After Hours AM, and if you're listening to us via podcast, make sure you like us, follow us, review us, tell your friends about us, tell grandma about us, and keep listening.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Hey everybody, this is Joel Sturgis, and did you know that After Hours AM and America's Most Haunted have a great new website out there? You're going to want to visit America's-most-haunted.com. There you can get all the new content from all the writers for America's Most Haunted, as well as the great haunted headlines everybody loves each and every week, as well as catch After Hours AM live right there, along with podcasts, past shows, and get to know your hosts, as well as contact us all in one stop. You're going to love it. You're not going to want to go anywhere else. So come to America's-most-haunted.com today. Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today and learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com. You're listening to After Hours AM. Do you have a question for the guests or even the host? That's really easy. Go ahead and email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Are you feeling like picking up the phone and being part of the show? Call us at 612-326-6874, 612-326-6874. Come be part of the madness.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. Hopefully you really enjoyed the Christopher David Hansen Band. They are our bumpers tonight. Man, I really like them. You should check them out, Eric. They infuse rock and roll of blues really, really effectively. And I like that kind of music a lot.
You're a blues rock.
I kind of am. Sometimes I like that bluesy, soulful rock and roll. You know, it's just kind of
absolutely
like a Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of feel.
Allman Brothers.
That's right. Old school, baby. Old school.
Eric Clapton.
That's
on and
right.
on and
yeah,
on.
exactly. Well, welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olson. And
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And we were given a new moniker by the listeners, and if I could pull this off, I will be happy. We are the triple sleuths of true crime. I can't remember. It's written there on the Facebook. It's really unwieldy to say is the problem. Although I do thank everybody for the warm wanting to give us. It is triple true crime sleuths is what they'd like to call us.
ooh,
That is pretty.
That is tough.
Yeah, that's pretty.
True crime sleuths. I mean, I like it, but
I do. That's pretty hard for radio. So triple true crime sleuths may not be as used as often as the three amigos of true crime. So, but thank you anyway,
like
guys. Love you all, and thank you for listening and adding to the show. But getting back to true crime headlines, brought to you again by thecriminalcode.com, your one-stop shop for everything true crime, including you have the rare opportunity to read the doctor's notes. Clarissa gives her own thoughts on each case, gives you her makeup and her workup of what she thinks is really going on in the case. So again, that's thecriminalcode.com.
Thank you, Joel. Oh, and speaking of listeners, I just wanted to shout out that Susan Messino is listening.
Geez, I don't know who that is.
She has no mercy, and she says there's no statute of limitations on murder.
I wouldn't think.
So.
I think she's right. There is not. And big hello to Susan. I love Susan Messino. We had her on the show in the wee early days of the show. After Hours
This
AM.
is true.
She was one of the first guests, and really enjoyed having her on. So, getting back to true crime, though, man, where are we going next?
This is super scary to me. I don't know why, but it really freaks me out. And this actually, I did not realize this had a connection to Florida, but it does.
Oh no.
Yeah. There
Florida
is
man.
Yes, Tampa, Florida. A Tampa, Florida man. He was charged on Friday with one count of interference with a flight crew. He was on a flight from Seattle to Beijing. Okay, so very long flight over the ocean.
Long. Yeah.
And in the middle of this flight, he went into the bathroom, and when he came out, he tried to assault the flight crew, and he tried to open the emergency door.
What?
He got it halfway open.
Really?
Yes, and they had to subdue him he was hit over the head with 2 different wine bottles, one of which broke before they were able to subdue him.
How often do you see people first try to open up those doors? Number 2, who has been bludgeoned to wine bottles except for in the old 1930s movies? Take that!
No kidding! And breaking a wine bottle?
Yeah.
You know how hard you'd have to hit somebody?
Yeah, that's some tough glass right there.
Yeah.
That glass will kick your ass.
Yes,
well,
it
have
will.
they determined that he was on something, or was he D.B. Cooper?
This is, I'm thinking that, this is just my brain running amok, but if he went into the bathroom and came out a little crazed, I'm kind of thinking he was on something.
Yeah, meth or something, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go do some crack or meth or coke in the bathroom.
Well, you think that probably coke would be your biggest suspect because you would have thought they would have smelled
the other stuff.
Meth,
yeah, agreed.
Well,
unless he was shooting up.
I think I'm going to go for a walk.
You mind?
The plane.
I'm going to take a wing walk. You mind? I've seen it in shows before. Watch this.
Yeah, I just need some air. Did I see, what's his name? Oh, my God, from that episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Was it William Shatner? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that one.
Oh, that's one of the greats.
Then later on, John
Lithgow.
Yes, that's who
yes,
redid it too. Yeah, great episode of The Twilight Zone.
I love this line from the story. Sparking a wild brawl with flight attendants and passengers who used wine bottles and zip ties to subdue the combative man.
The zip ties?
Well, Joseph D. Hudek, the 5th, is that what I'm reading correctly? Fourth, was charged Friday with one count of interference with flight crew members for allegedly assaulting 2 flight attendants, Delta Air. Oh, damn Delta. Again, you guys are having nothing but problems. Delta Airlines Flight 129. Wow. Did he say I'm a bomb? He should have said I'm a bomb. That would have stopped everything right there. You know that, right?
Like they wouldn't have subdued him?
Well, they would have said, oh, we got to stop. He said he has a bomb.
Well, I guess they did turn around. They turned around and took him back to SeaTac.
Wow. Man.
Airport, yeah.
Man. Well, hey, he deserved it. And plus.
Yes, he did, but the rest of the people on the flight didn't. My gosh.
No, that and, wasting alcohol is never appropriate. I don't care who you are or what circumstance. Wasting it is not right.
Absolutely. Well, we don't know if the wine bottles were full, so.
Well, I sure hope they weren't. I'd feel bad for that wine.
I know. I agree. So
Wasted
that was
wine. You know what they should do? There should be some sort of code or something you got to put in to open the door.
Yeah, well,
you would think so.
I guess, but then in an emergency, who remembers that? You know what I mean?
Ooh, well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Who's got the code? I don't know. She's dead.
Who has it? I don't know. Oh, no. And he was going, he was in the air, decides.
Or a key? Something.
Yeah, you wouldn't think he'd just willy-nilly just open it.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, it's terrifying to me that he got the door halfway open before they were able to stop him.
Astonishing, actually, is what it is.
Lord.
It's so weird. Well, looking to the future, I would like to know why he did what he did, what he was trying to achieve, and what chemicals propelled him in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he just wanted to practice his wing walking. Maybe he's one of the circus performers or at an air show. And he was just nervous about an upcoming event and thought he would go out for a little walk. Just saying.
Perhaps so. Maybe
you just never know.
Maybe it's as simple as that.
Or it could be the drugs in his system.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy, though. I mean, I'm not sure what he's going to be charged with overall, but I'm thinking he'll probably do time for that.
I hope so.
Oh, lots of it. I sure hope so, yeah. Like Eric said, I hope he does lots of time. Throw the book at him.
Let's keep him out of vehicles.
Definitely.
Yes. Of sort of any kind.
Maybe a clown car would be okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
A go-kart occasionally. A lawn tractor. Or maybe a golf cart from that nice place in Florida.
With stolen parts.
From the chop shop.
Okay, so this is a story that I did want to get your opinions on. It is more serious, but I've been kind of trying to avoid this story, but it's just popping up everywhere, so I can't.
I'm putting on my serious face.
I am right now. No more joking around here. It's a serious business.
Serious hat here. They started an opioid court, is what they're calling it.
Okay.
It is the world's first, or not world's, but the U.S.'s first opioid crisis intervention court in Buffalo, New York. They started it in June, and it is a court that is aimed at trying to rehabilitate opioid addicts rather than just imprisoning them, because opioids have become such a crisis, and they really have become a crisis. I mean, even in schools, the heroin and Percocet, they're all opiates. They're all sort of one and the same. People think of heroin being different from Percocet, and that's not really the case. They're both opiates. They're both kind of from the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a court that is looking at, instead of just sentencing people to time, trying to get them into programs.
Well,
so what are your thoughts?
Well, Eric, do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
Well, I'm basically, though at heart I'm an idealist. I'm in terms of law. I'm much more of concerned with the practical. That's why, for example, I've always been in favor of legal abortion. It's not that I'm in favor of abortion. It's not that I think it's swell and want to encourage people to engage in it, but we know that in the real world, people will. And if they are going to, then it should be legal and it should be safe, because otherwise it leads to death, it leads to all kinds of problems, botched abortions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So using that as an analogy, since opioids are and right here too in Ohio, I mean everywhere, it's nuts. It really is. And we're talking across the socioeconomic spectrum. This is in every corner of American society by now. And all ages, too. It's really quite horrifying. So if we're going to acknowledge the extent of this problem, then I'm all in favor of trying things that are a little bit different, of going out a little bit further. And, yeah, I mean, 100%, I agree. The goal should be to keep people alive, because it appears that once they're on this track, I mean, in so many cases, it's just a railroad to death. So let's keep our fellow citizens alive. A lot of times people get caught up in this through, I won't say no fault of their own, but relatively little fault of their own. They have an accident, something happens, they're prescribed.
Yeah.
The prescription runs out, but the addiction does not, and they switch over to much cheaper, street drugs that do more or less the same thing, or at least similar things. And once you get into street drugs, now you're talking about variable dosages, unpredictable dosages, etc. And that's usually the biggest problem, just not knowing what you're getting and not knowing what the dosage is. Mm-hmm. And if we can stop that, then hell yeah, I'm all in favor of it.
Now, I want to start my thought by asking Clarissa, what's the national protocol for these people? Are they considered criminals? Or are they considered victims? The people that are addicted to opioids.
By and large, I would say that the circles that I run in anyway, they'd be considered criminals, as well as but my problem with the whole thing, kind of piggybacking on what you were saying, Eric, is that a lot of these drugs, they're not coming necessarily from the street. The vast majority of these drugs are coming from doctors' prescriptions.
Well, that's because there's people out there that will get their script and then sell it. Piecemeal sell it, one pill
That's
at a
true,
time.
but the vast majority are prescribed these legally. That's what people don't understand, is that they're doctor shopping, and doctors are giving people, like I have seen prescriptions before for people that shall remain unnamed that I know, 100 Percocets a month.
Well, let me tell you a story.
Are you kidding me?
When I was in my early 20s, I sprained my ankle kind of bad. And, I mean, it was just pretty bad. I thought, I'll go in, it's ballooning up. And this doctor, get this, and this is probably about 1997, 1998, gave me a bottle of 30 Demerol tablets.
That's insane. That's insane.
To help me with my sprained ankle. Which, I'm like, really? Do I need that heavy of a drug? And I went home, I took them, man. Come fly with me. I mean, I'm telling you, I was flying high. So I understand how somebody could get hooked on that kind of medication very easily, because it's there and you can get it. If you're in pain, you take it. It gets becomes addiction relatively quickly. You hear it all the time. Sports athletes fall prey to this quite a bit, especially football players. But in my opinion, the people are not criminals so much as they are victims. Victims of two things. Number one, really a prescription society that's run amok that would allow these extremely potent, extremely addictive substances into the hands of anybody, really, that has an ache or a pain. It was overprescribed for several generations. Today, up until about 10 years ago, it was nothing to get like Oxycontins if you hurt yourself. It was nothing.
And it's still like that, though. Well, I don't understand.
I want to say that they've tightened it up quite a bit, made it harder to get them.
Yeah.
I know here where I live, it's a little bit harder. You have to get a written script from the doctor, take it with you. I do believe they ask your driver's license, things such as that, to try to curtail the people that are selling them on the street and just getting another script right away. To curtail that whole thing. But I really believe that the people that are going to court as the addict are a victim of not only the medical society that we have, but also the street dealers. So by and large, they are the victim, but they are the ones directly paying the penalty. How many doctors do you see behind bars for overprescribing opioids?
And that's to me where the rubber meets the road, and that's what makes me so upset about this. And, like I said, the circles I run in tend to see them as the perpetrators, the ones that are addicts.
Well, that's law enforcement. That's law enforcement with their rah
I personally
BS.
don't. I see the doctors as being criminal? Yes, I absolutely do. The fact that I myself know a variety of people that get these outrageous scripts. Like, okay, I get migraines, for instance. This person that I'm referencing also gets migraines. A prescription for 100 Percocets a month. Do you know what I get for my migraines? 800 ibuprofens. And 800 milligrams ibuprofens. Yeah. That's what I get.
Yeah. And there has to be.
Are you kidding?
You would think that medical science would devise a painkiller. And I know I'm going to throw it out there. Marijuana has been promising in that department, but everybody's afraid of the old devil's lettuce. Why, I don't understand quite. It's 2017. Why we still view marijuana as being this evil substance when people are flat out, like Eric had said, killing themselves on opioids. Flat out
there
killing
are pain
themselves.
Protocols, though. I mean, there are very, very good pain protocols for managing chronic pain.
Yeah, there really are. And but the problem is getting to the law enforcement end of it. The people that go to court as the addict, it's from prosecutors that want to appear tough on crime, tough on drug crime.
Yes, exactly.
They want to polish their own resume. I put this many drug offenders behind bars. By and large, from what I'm reading and what I'm seeing here, America is still more interested in incarceration rather than rehabilitation.
Right.
Until that flips over, and I'm hoping that this pilot program will be that first step to flipping that over and maybe going more towards treatment and getting people off this than putting them in jail.
I think we are seeing a change in the mentality. I don't know if it's national yet, but it's certainly here in Ohio. Like I say, it's everywhere. It's small towns. Yeah. It's rural. It's big cities. It's everywhere. Well, look, and it's the sheer volume of deaths is what is really making people sit up and take notice.
And Eric, not to cut you off, but I was just schooled the other day. Do you know what community right now is being hit very, very hard by the heroin epidemic? The Native American population.
Sure.
I didn't even think about that until a good friend of mine happens to be Native American, and we got on the subject. And he had said, it's decimating my people. It's the new quote-unquote, in his words, firewater.
Sure,
and
exactly.
It is absolutely decimating my people. And we're trying to get a handle on it just like you are. But we have needles on our main streets from people shooting up. Something has to give here. And obviously what we are doing is not working. And Eric, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was just going to say, Clarissa, you're absolutely right that I probably misstated or mischaracterized the problem in its entirety, because it is also you're 100% right. Lots of it is this abundance and ease of access, at least for a while, to actual prescription or even actual legal prescriptions. But around here anyway, what I keep hearing, the story I keep hearing, including a really good friend of ours who lives right down the street, her 2 nephews overdosed within the last year.
Gosh.
And it was the tale was a kind of what I said, where they started, they both had some, I think they were both in an accident, and they started on painkillers, legal painkillers. The prescription ran out. But they were both addicted by then, and they switched over to heroin.
Yeah.
And because heroin is so cheap, it's super cheap these days. And so, that's the go-to substitute. And heroin, anything that's cheap is going to get abused. And so it's a combination of the still availability. I do think it's changing. I think the word is getting out there, but obviously it hasn't changed enough based on what you're saying, Clarissa, in terms of, prescribing and ease of prescription and ease of access. But then it's also where it has been cut off or where they can't afford it anymore or it's just run out, whatever the case may be. with the addiction continuing, then switching over to heroin, for example, other drugs too, but heroin being the most obvious and the best known, I would imagine. And then you do run into the issues with, what is the dosage size? You don't know. And, so on and so forth. At least with prescription, as long as it's the real thing and not fake, which I think is also a problem, at least you know what you're getting.
Well, what are the doctors facing penalties? Just getting their privileges to prescribe meds taken away? What are they doing legally?
Not much and not enough. I mean, a lot of times it's not that their licenses are yanked. That's very rare. And that, that's usually for repeated offenses. Usually there's just some sort of oversight for a while where someone comes in and monitors the prescriptions that they're giving out. But to me, the problem isn't just simply a matter of the prescriptions that are being given out. It's the fact that there is very inadequate education for that. Like Eric, like you were talking about, when people get an injury, and they get these prescriptions, is the doctor talking to them about the addiction potential? Are they talking to them about a discontinuation protocol where they wean them off? Like all of this stuff should be spoken about with the patient. And with psychiatric drugs too, like people that go to get antidepressants from their doctor. They don't talk about these things either. I've talked to people just in random conversations that they don't know they're supposed to discontinue, in a stepped fashion. They just cold turkey go off and then wonder why they have all these terrible side effects. The doctor never talked to them about it. What's going on here?
You're right. And I think some of this now really does, if not most of it, falls right back on the medical community, not doing their due diligence to make sure everybody is well informed about how deadly and how addictive these medications can be. Not only the opiates, but like you had said, the mental health meds. They're not educating the consumer of what the potential, if you do this is the side effects you will incur on yourself.
Well, and giving alternate choices too. Like, I mean, when's the last time you spent more than, say, 15 minutes with a doctor? And I've actually argued back and forth with my doctor before about certain meds that they wanted to give me because I knew about the potential of certain things. And I said, hey, I don't want to, can I throw out a drug out there that has issues for women? For instance, I was on birth control for a very long time to regulate my cycles. And being on this birth control, once I hit age 35, I wanted to go on the birth control pill that does not have estrogen in it anymore because the risk of uterine and breast cancer associated with the birth control pill with estrogen goes up through the roof after you hit age 35. So when I hit age 35, I went to my doctor. I said, I want the mini pill like they take in Europe because it doesn't have it doesn't have estrogen in it, so it won't have the side effect, hopefully, of giving me cancer. And she looked at me like I had a third head and said, well, but that has a higher chance of pregnancy associated with it. I looked at her and said, yeah, it has a 2% chance as opposed to the 1% chance that the other pill has. I think I'll take that percentage rather than the cancer.
Good point.
It makes sense to me. Before we get to the top of the hour, circling back to the story, what is your take on it, Clarissa, on this court in Buffalo, New York?
I think that it is a very good, it's a good step in the right direction for sure, because I think that treating these people like they are just straight up pushers or criminals is the wrong way to go. And I think we should have more and more things like this specifically for, like opioids. It's such a tough thing to kick. I hope that they follow up and keep following up because it's kind of it can be sort of a lifelong disease, so a few months may not be enough to manage this. Yeah.
And it's killing people. I think, both you and Eric said it bluntly, and I agree with you both. It is killing people. It is not in any way taken care of as we're talking. There is no silver bullet to cure the problem because God, it just keeps on growing. It really does. And, when
people don't understand how it's going to kill them. You look at Corey Monteith, Heath Ledger.
Yeah, and like when I had my surgery that everyone knows about for my deviated septum, I did no painkillers. I went with just Tylenol. the 800 milligram ibuprofen.
Mm-hmm.
Simply
that's
because
what I do,
I don't tolerate it very well. It makes you sicker than a dog is what it does.
Mm-hmm.
Those high, potent pills, that makes me personally ill. But that being said, guys, I hopefully that our country and other countries, of course, we're not the only ones struggling with this, but hopefully some resolution can be reached and everyone can live longer and healthier, and maybe there will be an alternative to managing pain in the future. And I also want to throw out there, make sure you visit thecriminalcode.com. This has been brought to you by thecriminalcode.com. That is the talented and beautiful Dr. Clarissa Cole's very own website. Yeah, she's more than just a pretty face. She is one of the best in the field. Don't get me wrong, guys. She'll never say that to you, but I'm telling you, she knows her stuff. And if you want to have the rare opportunity to read the behind the scenes, the doctor's own workup on these very serial killers and mass murderers, and you name it, she's got it over there. But everything but the kitchen sink, it's a rare opportunity to truly climb into the mind of madness. And I'd like to thank Dr. Cole for making time to come with us again this week, which otherwise would have been free time. I don't think we thank you enough, Dr. Cole, for your expert analysis.
No, I love talking murder. Come on.
And we will be right back right after this. And Mr. Jeff Mudgett, star of American Ripper, as seen on History Channel. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. Back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olson and
Dr. Clarissa Cole,
also known as the Three Amigos of True Crime. And tonight we have a heck of a show for everyone tonight. Hey. And most of you have seen the show American Ripper last night. And we have tonight very, very special guest, Mr. Jeff Mudgett. And as always, I will allow Eric to tell you all about Jeff.
In history's new 8-part series, American Ripper, which premiered last night and runs Tuesdays at 10 Eastern and Pacific, the great-great-grandson of Chicago serial killer H.H. Holmes, Jeff Mudgett, is determined to prove a mind-boggling theory that H.H. Holmes and Britain's notorious serial killer, known as Jack the Ripper, were the same man. In addition, Mudgett leads an investigation that secured permission to exhume the presumed body of H.H. Holmes for DNA testing to determine whether he pulled off the ultimate con, escaping the gallows to lead a second secret life. Herman Mudgett, alias H.H. Holmes, was one of America's first serial killers, rumored to have claimed as many as 200 lives in the late 19th century. A con man, opportunist, and evil genius. The crowning achievement of his dark deeds was the construction of a building later dubbed the Murder Castle, a hotel on Chicago's South Side that he engineered to be a factory of death, complete with a gas chamber, dissection room, trapdoors, and a basement furnace to destroy any trace of his sinister work. Jeff Mudgett was living a normal life as a practicing attorney when at age 40 he was thrust into the most harrowing chapter of his life. Learning the facts about his ancestry plunged Mudgett into a full investigation about the forefather from whom he unexpectedly learned he was descended, the infamous serial killer H.H. Holmes. Welcome to the program, Jeff Mudgett.
Hey, guys, thank you very much. As always, it's a pleasure and an honor. And before we start, can I just say, Eric, you just nailed that description. That
Did he not?
Yeah.
Best in the business. Best in the business. But, you know, Jeff,
keep pouring it. Pour it on.
Yeah.
No, that's enough.
There it is. We all love you. You know that, Eric. But, yeah, absolutely, Eric is one of the best in the business. Anyhow, getting back to you, Jeff. Now, most of us, if not all of us, listening to this show have seen the show, American Ripper, on History Channel. And really, it was really well done, number one. Number two, man, how did you get permission to exhume his body? You know, I mean, right away I thought, wow, how were they able to get in there and actually get scoops on the ground and start moving earth? Was that a big undertaking?
You know what? That took us over almost a year to obtain permission from the Catholic Church, from the cemetery, from my family, and from the courts. And anyone who thinks exhumation is walking out to a graveyard, putting some shovels down and then digging up a body is sadly mistaken. This is something which requires lawyers, administrators, and a lot of money to get done. And without the backing of history and A&E, there's not a chance in heck it would have happened.
I was going to say, wasn't he entombed in concrete when he was buried? That must have been hell to get through that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you guys tune in to episode 6, you're going to see the entire process regarding the exhumation, and you're going to see that, you know, when we identified the double plots that Holmes bought to have this cadaver buried there, no tombstone, the location was tough. And we went down the normal distance, the 8 feet, and lo and behold, at that level, we found an empty pine box.
Mm-hmm.
We started calling it the decoy because, you know what? That empty pine box, we were changing history. Now, my co-host, Amaryllis Fox, who I bet you all agree, wasn't she great last night?
Yeah, very.
Yes, she's awesome.
Yeah, she really is.
No nonsense.
I mean,
former CIA chick with a freaky first name.
I love it.
I call her Scully. Now, the network has a fit when I do, but I call her Scully.
Yeah.
Because that was a Fox show, correct?
Yeah, well, and also it shows how tough and logical she is, and, you know, scientific and all the training she went through, and it's exactly right on. So, Amaryllis, I'm sitting there scratching my head. We've got this empty grave with a box that's, you know, nothing in it, and she says, you know, Jeff, we've got to go down a couple more feet. We can't stop here. Let's go further. And she had to talk everyone involved into it. We went down another 2 feet, guys, and we found that concrete sarcophagus you mentioned.
Ooh. Interesting.
And of course, we're not expecting you to ruin anything here, and so I will not even ask the obvious question of what was in it. That, of course, is for a later episode. But
no, let's go with it. There was a body in it.
Okay. You guys bust through the concrete. You get into his crypt that has been covered for 100 years almost, or a little over 100 years, with dirt.
122, 123 years. Yeah.
What did you find? You say you found a body, but was it the body?
Well, and I'm going to give you guys right from my heart and soul. Here it is, all right? I'm on pins and needles. I'm awaiting a phone call that could come right now on your show regarding the results of the DNA testing. So when we lifted the skeleton out of the concrete, spooky, eerie stuff. And,
I would imagine.
And Magilla captured it in such an amazing way that the audience is just going to be glued to their seats watching this. The University of Pennsylvania, the archaeologists and anthropologists there, which I found out were some of the most renowned in the world, they were assisting us on this whole thing. They took possession of the skeleton, took it to the university, laid it all out for us, and then as we watched and as the cameras rolled, they took DNA from the skull, which we sent to the university in London, which has the reputation as the best in the world. And then I sent a sample of my own DNA for them to compare. And we're waiting right now for the results. And quite frankly, guys, the delay is starting to cause me to believe there are problems with that comparison. And I got to tell you, I haven't seen anything yet which would cause me to change my theories that H.H. Holmes was Jack the Ripper, because I would have expected that DNA to come back in 3 days. It's been 2 months now.
So now,
2 months, my gosh.
Yeah,
that is a long time for DNA.
Very long. More Povich is quicker.
My question would be, from a skeleton, sometimes it's difficult if there's no flesh. Sometimes they have to take a tooth out, and you know what I mean, to get a good enough sample. Gotcha. Do you think that might be the issue?
No, but we found teeth, and they matched.
Did you? Good. Okay, good.
They matched the photograph that was taken by the prison at the time that he was examined before the alleged execution, and they match. Now, what we're trying to do is find out if that cadaver matches my DNA, because as you both know, that's one of my theories, that Holmes committed the greatest con on the American justice system that's ever been committed, and he walked away from that execution. And obviously, that DNA testing will determine yes or no, whether that's true or not. And guys, that's one thing I love coming on your show for, because I get to explain to your audience. You know, you guys have authors, you have theorists on your show all the time. What we wanted to do in American Ripper, and what I talked history into doing, is every step of the way, I'm willing to go out on the edge with my theories. I'm willing to go on national television and see if they're true or not, using the most modern forensic techniques available, with Amaryllis right there determining if it's a yes or a no.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, that's one of the things I'm most proud of about the show. There's no baloney. I'm not getting to BS anyone
that was
regarding
brought
my
up.
theories. This is going to be determined.
And that was brought up to me just the other day when you come on the show. You know, a few people said, "Do you think he believes any of this?" I said, "Would you go on national television risking being humiliated if he didn't believe it?" Well, no. Well, there you go. Mm-hmm. You know, would you put your own theories out there? Would you put your neck on the chopping block if you didn't truly believe it? Now, one thing we haven't discussed is how does England take this news? What do they think?
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
You know, but right before I got on the air with you, A&E notified me that they're just being flooded with interview requests from London now about my theories of Holmes and the Ripper. And I explained to History and A&E that, you know, you guys do some great television work, but prepare yourself for the tidal wave that's coming regarding any Jack the Ripper theory. It's an issue which, you know, raises such anger amongst people. I still haven't figured out why. I still haven't.
Well, you know,
people get so invested, though. Yeah. I mean, you look at the time and effort and personal money, like Patricia Cornwell, for instance, that author, you know, put her own money into trying to figure out who it is. It's like, it is the unsolved case. So people have like a lot of passion surrounding it. It's interesting. Although you'd think that England would, I hate to say this, but you'd think they'd be thrilled if it was an American.
You know, and people ask me the same question, Jeff, why would you want to prove your ancestor is Jack the Ripper? Mm-hmm. And that's a great question, which I've struggled with for a number of years. And, you know, I think it has to do, Clarissa, you could help me with this. As human beings, we all have this need to establish our origin and our identities, where we come from, our roots. And, you know, I've been hearing so much material lately about Holmes and the legends and the lores. I just decided, you know what, as an obligation to the innocents that he murdered that haven't been identified either. That's one of the funny things. We spend so much time trying to identify Jack the Ripper, and we haven't spent a nickel trying to identify Holmes's victims. And I think that's backwards.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think that victims are so often completely forgotten. Barely any details come out about them in books. That, you know, they're named, but you don't get a good picture of who they are. And I think that it's human nature in a lot of ways to, if there's someone in your past that has kind of a dubious past, it seems to be sort of the American way anyway, to kind of ignore it. Yeah. You know, that person didn't exist in our history. So I think it's very good of you and very noble to try to get down to the bottom of someone in your history, your own personal familial history, that wasn't the best person in the world. I mean, I think that everything makes up who we are, right? I mean, the good and the bad. And so many people just ignore that other piece. And we've all got some history that we may not be proud of, everybody.
No, I think that's right on. And let's face it, the reason I'm here talking with you, Joel, you, Eric, and you, Clarissa, are the conscious decisions of this perhaps the most evil man in American history. If he hadn't made certain decisions, I wouldn't be here alive today. But that fact has nothing to do with any choice I made. Mm-hmm. It's just thrust upon me.
Well, I was going to say,
than,
it's not like you had a choice.
Yeah, rather than be ashamed of where I came from, I just decided, no, he's not my ancestor. My heritage, my destiny, and my obligation to the victims are.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's noble of you. I mean, you know, because a lot of times we want to glamorize the perpetrator, especially historical atrocities like the Jack the Ripper or H.H. Holmes. We want to kind of glamorize that a little bit, but we forget about who they killed. They're just cannon fodder for the story. Where these people all had families and livelihoods and lives of their own that were cut short by these individuals. And now I understand that you have actually tried to make these victims known to some resistance. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Well, as you know, there's some naysayers out there. There's a healthy debate now about how many people Holmes actually murdered. To tell you the truth, I don't know how many he murdered. Yeah. I know Larson opined that it could be 200. I know, many people discuss how many people were associated with Holmes that somehow just went missing, 50, 60, 70. I know Holmes confessed to 27, but some were found later alive.
Yeah.
And I don't want to really get into that, guys, because until we get permission to excavate the grounds at 63rd and Wallace and find direct evidence of DNA from victims, really all this is just kind of going round and round the mulberry bush as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Holmes is also somewhat of a BS artist of pretty good notoriety. He liked to mess with people.
The greatest ever.
He liked to mess with people, too, so he wasn't above doing that. I mean, that was just something he really enjoyed doing, was manipulation as well.
You're right. He was a pathological liar. When you read anything he writes, you always have to remember this man had a motive for anything he's saying. There was money or women involved, mostly money, and even his signatures. He was a master of forgery. He taught the women that worked for him how to notarize each of his documents themselves with his signature. It's so ridiculous for me to have people come up now and say, well, here's a Holmes document. We can prove what he was doing at this time. No, you can't. You've got to go further than that. And that's why history, I was so happy for history to agree. They spent close to $1 million on this exhumation. We went to London. We tried to compare DNA there with the Catherine Eddowes shawl. We're trying to get the federal government to allow us to spend many, many more millions excavating those grounds at the murder castle. And these people of history are interested in finding out the truth. And I think, quite frankly, they're tired of just another author standing up and saying, this is what I believe, and then walking off the stage.
Well, yeah, you don't want it to become either. And there's always the danger of it becoming, Geraldo's Vault. You don't want that to happen, Jeff.
Well, I think we're past that point. We have a cadaver. We're having DNA tested. It's an amazing scene. You're even going to see, guys, me hold the skull up of this cadaver, as Hamlet did in Shakespeare.
Well, how did you feel? I mean, did you?
Yorick, I knew him well.
Are you kidding? You're kidding? I was almost sick to my stomach.
I was going to say, did you feel like any kind of pull to these remains? I mean, I've heard of people talk about, when they get close to family stuff, that there's almost a DNA pull. Did you almost feel that? Did you almost feel like, wow, man, this feels really odd?
Oh yeah, there's a scene, and it'll be on the show, and we've got 20 engineers, we've got scientists, we've got camera crews, we've got 2 news channels in Philadelphia flying helicopters over us, filming the whole thing, without permission. We've got cameramen hiding behind trees, and all of a sudden, guys, it just got too much, and I screamed out, will you all just stop?
Yeah.
Give me some respect here. This isn't something, we're not Indiana Jones finding the Ark of the Covenant. This has to do with my family and ancestry. Mm-hmm. Give me some space. And I sat there, and the director jumps in. He goes, "Hey, everybody, Jeff's exactly right. Give him a moment here." And I look down in the grave, Eric, and this skull is staring up at me, okay? And I don't know why, but I started emotionally actually crying a little bit, and I sat there asking myself, why the hell are you emotional over perhaps this most evil man that ever lived? If it's him. And I don't know how to answer that, but they got it all on film, and you're going to see it on American Ripper.
Well, I think I can address it a bit. First of all, it can be very mixed feelings. I mean, powerful emotions, that doesn't mean it's necessarily positive, but I mean, you're going to have some sort of hereditary, some sort of relationship feeling, no matter who that person was. He was still your great-great-grandfather, so that's on the one hand. But on the other hand, it's what is that head? What does that skull represent? Think of all the pain and the suffering and all the victims, as you've been talking about quite eloquently. Whatever that actual number is, it's way more than it should be. It's way more than none. And so there's the other side of that coin. So I see it. I have no problem understanding at all why you would feel very emotional and a welter of emotions that are mixing among themselves and perhaps even amplifying themselves. What I'd love to do, we have about 5 more minutes before the bottom of the hour, but coming out of that, I'd love to just a little bit of a recap and just get the background as to why you came to feel, and it sounds like you still do, that H.H. Holmes, your great-great-grandfather, could well also be Jack the Ripper, because I think that's a really, really interesting story. And I was going to ask, which you've already answered it, if you had been able yet to get into that ground once you found out that it wasn't covered by the post office. It's basically a parking lot, I guess, and see what you can find there. But you're saying no, you haven't been able to do that yet.
By the way, go ahead, Jeff, please.
Sorry. No, go ahead, Clarissa. Go ahead.
Oh, I just regardless if somebody is your relative or not, I would assume that if you're not, let's say, a medical examiner or a coroner or something like that, just being around a body, a human, let's say this was not your relative, Jeff. Let's say the person that is buried there is not H.H. Holmes. You were holding the skull of a person that lived and breathed 120 years ago. That's a pretty heavy thing regardless.
I'm glad you frame it like that, because before we opened the sarcophagus up, I had a couple of friends contact me and say, Jeff, we don't know who's in there yet, but be careful. There's a reason he was encapsulated in that concrete if it's Holmes.
Yeah.
There's a reason no one wanted him ever to see the light of day again. Think again about opening that up. And all of a sudden, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm not supernatural oriented. Mm-hmm. But those warnings that I was given kind of chilled me to my bones.
I believe you. I know that you guys believe, Eric and Joel believe more in the paranormal than I do. But I think that, for instance, I mean, this is a long, long time ago, but sorry if I gross anyone out. The first time that I held a human brain was, I felt very oddly superstitious after that, Jeff. I totally relate with that. It's bizarre because I don't feel that way either. But the thought that this was in someone's head that held all of their hopes and dreams and maybe their worst, nightmares, and it was in my hands, there was something undeniably strange and kind of superstitious about that. I felt odd about it.
I got to tell you, when we get back from the break, I'll tell you a story about the brain that was in the skull after 125 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I so want to hear that.
Yeah, that will be good. And Jeff, it's we got to tackle some of the naysayers that are out there.
Yeah.
We also got to tackle some of these issues that are floating around out there. I'd like to clear the air with Jeff. That's the kind of show we are, and Jeff knows that. We're not afraid to tackle these tough issues. We're going to go to break a little bit early just so we have a little bit more time on the other side to tackle all that stuff, including what that brain looked like inside of that 120-plus-year-old corpse. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
No rape, baby, on my heart. Telling lies. baby, from my thoughts. Your pictures on my fridge, and I've been winding up the Mowax records, playing them for the kids. Them old songs light up in the dark. I like the way you make me scratch my chin. You're holding out your arms.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Author Steve Asher brings us Hauntings of Trilogy. Steve's first book, Hauntings of the Kentucky State Penitentiary. This first installment of the trilogy tells us the tale of the Kentucky State Penitentiary and why it's so haunted. With every turn of the page will be something new and terrifying. Pick up Steve's new book, Hauntings of the Kentucky State Penitentiary, at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and all better bookstores everywhere. Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today and learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com. If you're listening to After Hours AM, do you have a question for the guests or even the host? That's really easy. Go ahead and email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Are you feeling like picking up the phone and being part of the show? Call us at 612-326-6874, 612-326-6874. Come be part of the madness.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Well, I got an old radio song. It's been rolling around in my head. I've been waiting on you, but I better not hold my breath. And I got told that it wouldn't take long, but I've been waiting here ever since. I've been waiting on you, but I better not hold my breath.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. And we are speaking with Mr. Jeff Mudgett tonight of American Ripper. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, and right along with me,
Eric Olson and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And when we were leaving the air, we were going to get into the cringeworthy stuff. So if you got kind of a queasy stomach about what might be kicking around inside someone's brain, this might be a good time for you to turn down the radio. But Jeff is about to unveil. Man, Jeff, I'm going to let you do it. I'm not even going to go into it. You tell us what you found.
All right, so we're at the University of Pennsylvania. The skeleton is laid out on the table. And you know, quite frankly, I'm torn for Holmes to have pulled off this escape from hanging and then had this massive conspiracy to where someone else was buried in his place would have required, which he was, an incredible genius. And, you know, so I'm there realizing, while I believe it was possible, the DNA testing is going to establish yes or no. I mean, there's no way to get around that, especially when you're on a direct line from me, my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and then Holmes, okay? Mm-hmm. So the scientists are all assuring me, yes, they will be able to establish it was him or not.
Okay.
So, you know, we're there in the laboratory, and the judge has ordered the body to be put back the way we found it as soon as possible. This judge was an amazing man. He allowed us to do this as long as the archdiocese agreed. But he said, you guys make a media event out of this, and I'm shutting it down. I mean, he was really cool. Yeah. And he said, now you put it back the way you found it. And so, McGilla and A&E and history, they're all doing their best to make sure that happens. So we're there in the laboratory. I've got this skeleton laid out, and this skull is looking me in the eyes. It's terrifying. And Clarissa, as you discussed earlier, the only thing going through my mind, me having been a student of Shakespeare for many years, was that Hamlet scene where he holds, I can't remember the name of the character, but he holds the skull up and asks to be or not to be. So, yes. I asked the director, can you guys film me holding the skull in my hand? And they all jump at that. They all want that, absolutely. So I grab the skull, the scientists make sure I'm holding it properly so that nothing is damaged or so. And I'm looking up at it. And as I've got the skull in my hand, Eric, something flops inside it. Okay.
I love those skull flops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I almost peed my pants. And I turned to the main scientist, Janet, who America's going to fall in love with. She's 65 years old and just the most amazing brain you're ever going to meet. And she's won prizes all over the world. And I say, Janet, what's going on here? There's something flopping in the skull. She runs across the laboratory. What are you talking about, Jeff? What are you, crazy? No. She grabs it for me, and it flops in her hand. So then her assistant comes over, and they're turning the skull to where they can see through where the spine connects with the skull. Sure. And lo and behold, the brain is still there after over a century.
Wait a second. Hold on.
That's insane. That's why they can't preserve life, supposedly. That's why all this cryogenic stuff is not supposed to work, because the brain starts breaking down immediately upon death.
So you...
Well, this one didn't.
Oh, so it's now, Jeff, and I don't mean to be overly graphic. You mean squishy?
Go for it.
Squishy, fresh brain flopping around inside this skull, and you say, "Damn it, Janet! Why is this brain still in here?" They were completely.
And you know what this scientist tells me?
Huh,
Jeff? I don't know why it's still there. It shouldn't be.
So are they going to remove the brain and test that and maybe get more? Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, just for this example, let's just say this is Holmes. Could you imagine the scientific data and knowledge that could be gained from that brain? Being able to study. Should it
right
be
on.
Should it be intact?
Right on, and that's what I told him. You have my permission. I'll get my father and my uncle to agree. Open the skull, remove the brain, preserve it so that one day when our technology catches up with this piece of evidence of if it is Holmes, the greatest serial killer that ever lived, keep it so that we can study it one day. And I think they went back to the judge and asked his permission. I haven't heard the results yet of that either.
To be honest,
this is the scary part, though. Unless it was put in formula, like formaldehyde. My guess is that it may have been preserved because the tomb was encased in some way.
Yeah.
Right.
If there's no air, that can happen. But if there's air, I worry about breakdown. You know what I mean?
Oh, see, I'm more interested in, and of course, I know exactly what you're talking about. But Clarissa, could you imagine, especially in your field, having the Holmes brain? Let's assume it's intact. Being able to see where the wiring went wrong.
Well, this is kind of a misnomer, though, all right? I mean, I don't want to get into all this neuropsych stuff, but typically where we see differences in the brains of, let's say, psychopaths, and Jeff, I apologize, I'm not necessarily saying he was definitely a psychopath, but do you mind if I kind of go down that road a little bit?
I don't have any doubt he was.
Okay. Well, he didn't want to offend anyone. So where we see the differences is typically in brain function. So on a PET scan, let's say, of living people, a non-psychopath has certain areas of the brain light up during emotional things. When they're watching emotional things, for instance, that a psychopath, their brain does not light up at those emotion-causing things. However, a psychopath's brain will light up at violent things. Now, it's not a structural difference of the brain. It is how the brain functions electrically, chemically, that makes the psychopath different. So I doubt that structurally we would see any differences unless Holmes was as intelligent as they said he was, in which case we would potentially see more white matter like we saw in Einstein's brain, for instance.
Now, does size, when it comes to brains, I'm asking everybody here, matter?
No difference.
No, it doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter.
Size does not matter.
Okay.
White cells, though, glial cells in particular, do matter. Now, if he had a bunch more glial cells than the average person, that means he thought faster and was likely more intelligent than the average person. So that I would love to know.
Wow, man!
Well, I mean, I gotta tell you, this was television history, and I hope your listening audience turns into the show because I can't wait to see it myself. I haven't seen the scenes yet.
Yeah, I know. When I talked to you on the phone, getting ready for the show, you hadn't even seen the screener. You decided to wait until it was live on History, and I applaud you for that because I would have been all over that. Oh, let me see that
No
screener.
kidding.
But Jeff chose not to.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
But Jeff chose not to, and me and Eric had the screener. It took everything I had, Jeff, not to say, hey, Jeff, I got the screener, man. You want to take a look?
No. I tell you what, I was so nervous yesterday, and luckily the East Coast got to see it, obviously earlier than I did. So then all my fans on Facebook wrote, Jeff, the show's great. Don't worry about it. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. So when I turned it on at 10 o'clock here, I was fine, and I watched it, and I really enjoyed it. But I got to tell you, I was so nervous. My buddy Kim Estes, who's up for an Emmy this year in Hollywood, he told me there's some actors that won't even watch their own movies.
Oh, I believe it. I do not listen to my own shows. Generally speaking, I don't listen to shows that I do unless I absolutely have to.
Really?
Yeah, I just don't like to sound my own voice. I go, oh, my God. And then I hear all my mess ups. Oh, I'm like, oh man, I could have asked that question better. I could have done this better. And so that's why I don't do it. And I don't think, Eric, do you do that? Do you listen to our shows?
I listen periodically just to kind of get a checkup and see how I'm doing and see how I feel about things. I'm up and down about hearing my own voice. Yeah, I mean, in the old days, I hated it. Most people do, I think, when you're young. I'm pretty used to it now because I've heard it enough that it doesn't alarm me. But no, I don't sit and listen to every single show. It was kind of fun when Clarissa and I did a hour-long it was only a half-hour-long podcast for a while. And so that's very intensive and lots of editing and lots of listening. So that was odd for a while because I was essentially, or at least I was helping doing the editing. So I would hear the same things over and over, and you really do kind of become desensitized to it. Sure. But I totally understand that. Yeah, and you're actually, I remember reading there's a lot of actors who have never seen some of their really key performances and never watched them.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Well, that's the way I was feeling.
Exactly. Now, we got to take a little bit of a left turn here, and we got to, there's a lot of people saying, Jeff, man, we love you, we like you, but you're nuts. There's a lot of that out there, and they're saying that H.H. Holmes' records are between July 1888 and April 1889. And also records clearly showing him working on a home in northern Illinois where there was even land disputes. How do you overcome those kind of dates? When somebody does that and they say, well, this is where he was, how do you overcome those dates? That's kind of the problem.
Well, I've heard about those claims. I've only seen one alleged document about that. I like to call those guys the so-called historians because I call them Google cowboys. They sit in front of a computer with a keyboard and they pull up a newspaper article from the 1890s or a document from some alleged archive, which they haven't validated, they haven't substantiated, they haven't made sufficient to actually present in a court of law as evidence. And they make this theory or opinion, not on the grounds that I'm doing mine based on forensic science, but they have these opinions. And the one that I saw, Joel, was, now check this out. The gentleman's going to try to establish where Holmes was from a voter registration log in Chicago, the land where the voting dead was invented. and here we're dealing with Dr. Death himself, and we're going to establish where he was because someone walked down the street and said Holmes lived at this place, registering him to vote. And I got to tell you, if it wasn't so ridiculous, and I have so much respect for your show, I'd laugh out loud. I need to see more of it. I'm going to look at each document with an open mind because, you know what, guys? If someone can prove that my theory is incorrect, I'll stand up and take my medicine. I haven't seen it yet.
And of course, Jeff, as you know, we respect you immensely, and we also know that you don't dodge questions. And that's something that we talked about that I said I found that very refreshing and admirable because, there might have been a guest or two, right, Eric, that tap dance a little bit more than others. Just saying, when the hard questions came along. And another glaring, I shouldn't say glaring, but another murmuring of a question is money. Oh, Jeff's doing this for money. Jeff's doing this for money. He's definitely doing this for money. Why else would we be doing it? Why don't you tell us why you're doing it? I don't think that you've ever sat there and said, this is why, to us anyway, this is what goes on the back of my head. This is what drives me to want to know these answers.
The money question always amuses me because if people knew, Joel, how much money out of my own pocket I've spent on this journey to, try to establish these theories as fact or not, they'd be amazed that anyone would be silly enough to do it rather than just go fishing or play golf.
Well, they don't understand, though. Now, you've been at this a long time before history ever approached you to make a show.
Ever. 10 years before they came.
So it wasn't like last week you said, I want to make a show. So I maybe that's lost a little bit in translation with the audience, because maybe they didn't buy Bloodstains. Maybe they didn't see you doing your TED Talk. Maybe they didn't see those things, and maybe that's where, just speaking out loud anyway, that problem comes into play. Because I do remember you telling me flat out that you want to, on your own nickel, erect a monument to the victims we know about of Holmes.
Yeah, I wrote a letter to the head of the post office in Washington, D.C., and said that I would like to erect a bronze monument to the victims without ever mentioning H.H. Holmes. I wanted to make it to the victims. I don't want it to have anything to do with my book, a movie, a television show, anything. Just the victims there. And obviously we can't identify them yet. Maybe we never will. But there's a way. There's a way to do it properly. I told D.C., I'll pay for this myself. I'll do it in a way that it's not a danger to anyone. It won't interfere with post office operations. Can I please do this? They said no. They said plant a bush. And I said, a bush?
Wow.
Wow, that was kind of unfeeling.
If you know Chicago and if you know 63rd and Wallace, you'll know how silly planting a bush is. And guys, I got to tell you, once they see how responsibly we handled the exhumation, once they see how responsibly we're going to put everything back the way it was, once they see how we didn't make a media circus of it, I think when I go back to them, they're going to give me permission not only to erect the monument, but also to do the excavation there using those same scientists, those archaeologists and anthropologists from the University of Pennsylvania.
I really, really, truly hope that comes to pass. I really do, because the victims, again, as we said earlier, are quite oftentimes forgotten in the lore, and that would be a wonderful thing to see something there.
Well, Clarissa's mentioned that many times. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, before we go any further, I wanted to do this on your show. I did this on an interview the other day with NBC, and I want to repeat. I was thinking I need to repeat it with Joel, Eric, and Clarissa. You know, when you talk, and this is what Clarissa, I wanted to ask you this from maybe your training. You could help me. I don't understand why people get so angry about some ex-lawyer's theory that H.H. Holmes may have been Jack the Ripper. And because when you think of these two gentlemen, Ripper was the junior varsity team compared to H.H. Holmes. In my opinion, history should be trying to prove Jack the Ripper was H.H. Holmes, not me proving Holmes was Jack the Ripper. Yet I get this anger wherever I go when I raise the circumstantial evidence. You guys wait till you see the evidence we unearth from our investigation and Amarillo spines. You're going to be amazed. And have we conclusively proved Holmes was Jack the Ripper? No, I'm going to be honest with you. Have we established probable cause that if Holmes was alive today, we could have a warrant issued for his arrest, he would be incarcerated, and then stand trial for the murders of Catherine Eddowes and Elizabeth Stride? Yes, and that's what I was trained to decide and opine upon. It's not something I'm making up. And when you see the show, and as we lay out each piece of evidence, I think all three of you are going to be amazed.
I think people get very attached to their theories. You know, and honestly, I see this in law enforcement all the time, where they, and the victims' families too, they will attach to somebody that they think is the perpetrator. And really attach hard to that theory because they put time, they put effort into it. And then DNA comes out that proves that this is not the person. And I have seen people, including DAs, cops, victims' families, look me in the eye and say, but he's the one that did it, even though we have DNA that proves that he didn't. People can get very emotionally invested in these cases.
That's because people need to get over themselves a little bit here and look at the facts for what they are. And a great question just came in from the Facebook crowd. Again, definitely join the Facebook group over there, the After Hours AM, America's Most Haunted. Jeff, in your opinion, how did Holmes elude death? Who was his accomplice, in your opinion, to avoid the gallows?
That's a great question, and one of the problems I have about the alleged execution is every major newspaper covered the execution and burial. Every major newspaper had their best reporter there. When you go back and read each article that they produced, none of them are the same. They're all different regarding essential facts about whether he had a hood on, whether he was hanged 3 times, whether the doctors ruled him not dead and had to they took him back up the scaffold and dropped him again, or whether he was immediately dead, whether he was dropped into a box and concrete was applied there at the scaffolding in the prison, whether a mule team was required to drag him and the concrete to the grave, whether he was taken to a mausoleum and let lie for 3 days before he was buried. Guys, every essential fact is different. How can all of these major American newspapers and their best reporters have got it so messed up?
Well, yeah. I've noticed that there's different accounts it depends on what outlet you want to believe about that account of what happened.
And that's what frustrates me so much about these theorists. They go through these articles, Joel, and they pick out which fact fits their theory, and they delete the ones that don't from the same article. You can't do that. If you're going to use an article and say this is the truth, you can't simply remove portions that you don't think fit your story. You've got to use those too. That's how evidence at trial works. And, it's frustrating for me. And that's why I finally put my foot down and said, listen, we've got to dig him up. We've got to dig this grave up. We've got to find out who's there. We've got to put the best scientists in the world who applying their knowledge to proving one way or another whether these legends and lores are true or not.
Jeff, real quick, what evidence have you come across thus far that supports the theory that he did escape the gallows when he was allegedly executed?
There's a Journal of American Medical Association report, Clarissa, from the prison doctor that inspected Holmes before the alleged execution. And the opening statement this doctor makes as he's walking in Holmes' cell is, wait a minute, this isn't the guy I recognize from the photographs and the drawings in the articles. Who's this?
Interesting.
Okay? And then the doctor says, wait a minute, I'm gonna give this guy a Jeopardy quiz. He starts asking him about medical conditions, and he says, "This guy didn't go to medical school." And then he makes a conclusion. You guys are going to love this. He says, "This is the most degenerate-looking human being I've ever seen." This guy had 4 wives. He had hundreds of mistresses. He had babies. He was described by the newspapers in court as this elegant, debonair fellow that kicked his lawyers off the trial and defended himself. It doesn't add up. And then, one of the famous historians from Chicago did some research for me and found out that Holmes curse, anyone involved in the arrest, the execution, or the alleged burial either died or suffered misfortune. There were 41 people, and the New York Times wrote about it. So, when people say, oh, Mudgett's just making this theory up. No, I'm not. There are strange things which need to be addressed, and that's why we exhumed him. That's why we're testing the DNA.
Man. Who is this degenerate? Boy, is he ugly.
Yeah,
wow.
I'll tell you what. I'll send you guys a copy of the doctor's.
I would love that. I have a sneaky feeling they're going to say that when they come across me.
Who is that degenerate? So, Jeff, what if he did live? What is your theory on where he went and how he lived and how long did he live, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Any thoughts or any information on any of that?
I'd be giving you guys my best shot with imagination involved. I don't really know, and those are great questions that someone has to address. If this DNA comes back negative, this has to be looked into by smarter people than I am, because it's something that we're changing. We're changing American history.
I was going to say it changes everybody's theory. Okay, all the naysayers, it kind of puts them on notice that there's more going on here than they would like to admit. Then, because if Holmes was actually able to elude the hangman, well, he had to have gone somewhere. And someone that well-known isn't going to stick around. I mean, I'm out of here, man.
And you know what? And I enlist the three of your help. Can we just ask the naysayers to sit back and wait until the DNA results are published? Can we just wait a little bit, be patient?
I agree with you. I agree. Let's see where the smoke, when the smoke all settles, let's see what's left.
There will be objective evidence.
Yeah, and if there's anything I've learned many years in this field, it's that you don't know until the facts are in. So don't jump to conclusions, because you really don't know.
Yeah, and these bones have been there over a century. Can't we just wait a couple of months before we start yelling and calling? You guys should see the names I'm being called because of this quest, this journey I've been on, and my willingness to stand on national television and have a fool made of myself if this DNA comes back positive. Yeah. I mean, it was something I thought about a long time, and you know what? Okay, I'm going to do it, because this is the way investigations should be conducted. This is the way theories should be decided. This is the way legend and lore should be. We should find out yes or no, the facts that, of the world we live in, and I'm quite proud of that. But I got to tell you, I'm nervous about how the results come out.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on the show when they do come out.
No sweat. I'd love to come
on. I'd love to have you back on, and we can discuss it. And and you're with friendly company. That, to be honest with you, Jeff, first time we talked with you, we're all like, Holmes' grandson, and then we got to know you and realize what kind of caliber of individual you are. By the way, I'm not saying that because you're on the show. I'm not saying that to sound nice. That is the truth. I think all three of us can agree to that.
Yes, indeedy. Absolutely.
Of course.
And I think it comes through on the show, too. And you got a theory, you're defending it, you're seeking evidence, and you're going to live with the results. I don't know what more anyone could ask of you.
In my opinion, it's the way it should be done.
I would wholeheartedly agree. And wow, look at the time. We are done, guys. We're at the end of the show. Jeff, I would love to thank you for coming on. Of course, it's American Ripper, everybody. You can catch it next week, same time, next Tuesday, at the same time, 8 parts. You're going to want to watch all of them as this all unfolds, because this is a real story. This is really Jeff's lineage being put out there for the world. I mean, his ancestors. So you're going to want to watch that. But on behalf of myself, of course, Joel Sturgis, Mr. Eric Olson over there, and the beautiful and talented Dr. Clarissa Cole, we'd like to thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and keep watching the History Channel on American Ripper. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.